If you want to play this year's biggest games, you're gonna need to buy an SSD. Are February's PS Plus games canceled? We've also got a great deal on some huge games, and is this what Spartacus needs to do to compete with Game Pass? Man, that was hard to say. Anyway, let's find out in today's episode of PlayStation News. And before we do, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So just like with TV streaming, where every company seems to need to have their own streaming service like Peacock, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, HBO Max, you know, all of these different streaming services that Netflix was supposed to defeat back in the day, gaming has the exact same problem, where we have Game Pass from Xbox, we've got Ubisoft Plus from Ubisoft, and we have EA Play from EA. Now on the Xbox side of things, EA Play is included with Game Pass Ultimate, but on the PlayStation side, we've got to pay extra for it. So this deal that they have going on right now is actually pretty awesome. Between now and February 8th, if you sign up for EA Play on your PS4 or PS5, it'll only cost you $5, but the difference is that $5 is going to cover 3 months instead of 1 month. And there are actually some pretty good games on there. There's not a million good games, but like there's enough where in 3 months you could probably play all the best ones. So starting out with, you should definitely check out the Mass Effect Legendary Collection. Mass Effect was huge when I was in high school, but I never really played it because the first one came out before I got an Xbox 360 and none of my friends were playing it at that time. I jumped on 2 on PC when it came out, and I obviously bounced off quick because I didn't really know what was going on, and I never played 3. But earlier in 2021, we got this Mass Effect Legendary Collection, and I finally got to experience Mass Effect 1 with a ton of graphics upgrades, a lot of combat updates, and you know what? It really held up despite the fact that it's a pretty old game. I mean, the graphics were a little bit better, they're still a little rough around the edges, but then when you jump to Mass Effect 2 and see how good that looks in the Legendary Collection, you're like, whoa, this is a pretty damn good looking game, and it kind of got me excited for more Mass Effect, which we're supposedly getting soon. We're all just gonna forget that Andromeda ever happened. So if you've never played any of these games, they look and run really well on the PS5, so that's a great option if you're paying $5 for this EA Play service. Like, why not? And you guys know I have to recommend Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game's been on sale so many times, and it has like a free PS5 upgrade. It goes on sale on PS4 all the time, but if by some chance you're one of the like 6 people who have never checked this game out, this is a great way to do it. You could probably finish it in around a weekend if you just want to stick to the story, but if you're a completionist and exploration person like I am in video games and you want to crawl through every nook and cranny that the maps have to offer, this one could take you at least a few weeks just to get all the way through, and then you've got the hardest difficulty to try when you beat it. And I recommend it because the combat in this game is surprisingly very good and very deep. There's not a lot of cheap deaths in it. Like, if you get good at the combat, even on the highest difficulty, you can kind of stomp your way through this game. And if you master stuff like parrying and some of the force abilities you get later in the game, when you start doing these tougher boss fights, you can kind of just stomp those as well. So I highly recommend checking out Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I always forget that EA actually bought Codemasters last year, so there's a ton of dirt games on there if you're into rally type stuff, and they've also got a few Need for Speed games on there. I tried Need for Speed Heat because they got it really cheap in a Steam sale over the summer last year. It's pretty good. It's got very arcadey drift style racing to it. The map is based on Miami. It's got some cool cars, some good music. So if you kind of like Burnout back in the day, like Burnout Paradise, it feels like a lot like that game. Not really as much like, I don't know, Need for Speed Carbon or Pro Street or any of the ones that I was playing when I grew up. It's like an open world Burnout style racing game. So if you're into arcade stuff, go for Need for Speed Heat. If you're into simulation, rally type stuff, go for Dirt. And if you want more racing simulation stuff, they've got all the grid games on there too, which I've never played, so they might be bad. I'm sorry. If you had to drop off Battlefield 2042 because all the players left, you can check out every other Battlefield game starting with 1, Hardline, 4, and 5 on EA Play. Battlefield 5 is sort of seeing a resurgence at this point now that all the DLC is out, all the patches are out, people are kind of rediscovering it. I always see a ton of people playing that game, and I'm sure the community is the biggest on the PS5, so if you want to check out Battlefield, I feel like Battlefield 5 is the way to go. Battlefield 1 is always a good time, and if you're wanting that modern combat take that you didn't get in 2042 because no one is playing it and it's such a broken mess, Battlefield 4 is still pretty dang good. I know it was a launch title on the PS4, which is crazy, but the graphics are still there. They hold up. And one of the games that won a ton of Game of the Year awards that I feel like no one really played last year was It Takes Two, and that's also on there. I know that's like a cheaper indie game, but a lot of people, they see those games and they're like, I don't really want to pay for it. So if you're in that camp, $5 for the subscription is a great way to play it. And then if you're into that co-op type stuff, their other game, A Way Out, is also on the service. So that's a pretty good weekend game to play with your buddy or something like that. So yeah, you can try out all those games, and there's a whole bunch more I didn't even mention for just $5 for 3 months. I don't know. I just feel like there's no downside to this unless you forget to cancel it and then you pay for it forever and stop using it, which is probably what they want you to do. So just make sure when you sign up, you set a reminder in your phone to cancel this service eventually so you don't get charged for months and months and months and then look at it later and be like, but I never used it. So I'm sure you guys have noticed at this point that we're approaching the end of January very quickly, and we have not heard the PS Plus games, which is crazy because for the past 6 or 7, maybe even 8 months, right around this time, we always get big leaks of every PS Plus game we're getting in the following month. So a lot of people are asking, are PS Plus games canceled online? And to me, that's a crazy question. I don't know why people are asking it. No, obviously the PS Plus games aren't canceled. Sony has just figured out a way to not have them leak out way before they actually want them to. But every time they're late like this on the PS Plus games, comicbook.com makes a list of the ones they think could be the PS Plus games, and they've actually been right more than a few times with at least a couple of them. So I found that list for this month, and I'm going to read some of the games, and you can let me know down in the comments what you think. So the first game they think we're getting is Life is Strange, the remastered collection. This was actually delayed a couple times, I think. I don't know why they didn't get this out before True Colors, because that's like the newest game in the series, so you'd think you want to give people an opportunity to catch up before checking out the new one. But anyway, they're releasing this on February 1st, which is probably when we'll get the PS Plus games. That's some pretty good math there. I feel like we could possibly get this because PlayStation is no stranger to giving us games day one on PS Plus. They just don't get nearly as much hype as Xbox does. Hell Let Loose was like a really cool World War II Battlefield style game that we got on PS Plus day one. So I feel like this is honestly a pretty good prediction. Life is Strange is an older game. Square Enix is obviously making deals with Xbox with Outriders on Game Pass day one. I could see them doing the same thing with Life is Strange on PS Plus. The next option is one I want to be real because I love this game and I feel like more people should play it. It's Shadow Warrior 2. So that game came out a long time ago. The third one is allegedly from a leak coming out on March 1st. So a month before that, they could put Shadow Warrior 2, an older game, on the service. It just makes sense, right? Devolver also puts a lot of their games on PS Plus and Game Pass, so I could definitely see it happening. It's basically like one of those Doom 2016 style games where they look back at what made first-person shooters actually good, and then they translate it to a newer game with good graphics. It's got light loot elements to it. It's got really good combat. It actually has some of the best melee combat in a first-person game I think I've ever experienced. So if you've never played Shadow Warrior 2 and they add it, definitely grab that one. Or if it's on sale or something like that, it's usually pretty cheap. I would recommend checking it out regardless. And then their last pick is Neo 2, and this is the one where I'm like, nah, this probably isn't happening because they're like, well, Square Enix is releasing Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, which is like Dark Souls Final Fantasy. So like, what if also Neo 2 was added to PS Plus this year? I don't really get that one. It would be cool to have Neo 2 on there because people really like it. A lot of my friends really like it, but I think we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that one. But yeah, those are the games that comicbook.com thinks are coming to PS Plus, but if you have some better options, make sure you let me know down in the comments. I know the whole Microsoft buying Activision thing has been done to death at this point. Honestly, I'm sick of talking about it, so I'm sure you're sick of hearing about it, but I just read an article about PlayStation Spartacus. It was like, here's what PlayStation needs to do to compete with Game Pass now that Microsoft owns Activision. And again, I don't really see how those things are related other than the fact that Call of Duty might be on Game Pass day one and we'll have to pay 60 or 70 bucks for it on PS5. But like, yeah, I like playing on PS5, you know, like I still have to go buy a $500 Xbox to take advantage of Game Pass. Whereas like, if I want to play a Call of Duty game, I'm only going to spend 70 bucks for the console I already have. But yeah, the obvious thing that people keep saying Spartacus needs to compete with Game Pass is day one releases. And I just completely disagree with that from top to bottom. I really actually don't want that to happen. I know that the argument there is that like it's cheaper, right? Because you pay 15 bucks a month, you get the games on the day they release. It's awesome. You get these AAA experiences. You can just download them right to your Xbox or your PC. I get the talking point with Game Pass, but there's an issue there that I feel like is getting swept under the rug, and that's the way that Microsoft is compensating for the fact that they're sinking AAA budgets into these games and then releasing them essentially for free on Game Pass. Halo Infinite is a great example because it's basically the biggest game on Game Pass. It's a real AAA exclusive from Xbox, and the microtransactions in that game are insane. They fixed them a little bit. They're messing with the store to make it at least a little bit better, but man, charging 20 bucks for armor, charging 10 bucks for like warthog skins, just the stuff they were throwing in the store was absolutely nuts. And then they would have these events, right? Like Tenrai. It was an event where you could earn an armor core for samurai armor, and the best samurai armor was of course in the store, and I'm pretty sure it cost around $25. They also extended out the like new battle pass that comes with that event, so it was like 7 tiers per week, right? So if the event came up, you had a week to do 7 challenges, and then you could progress 7 tiers in the list, and then you had to wait for the event to come up again later to do the next 7. You couldn't just make your way through it in a week because they want to make that artificial grind. Forza Horizon 5 they also got a little crafty with, so of course that game was on Game Pass right from day one. You got everything with it, which is cool, but they also still had that version of the game, like the Ultimate Edition, where you could pay over $100 and play it a few days early. I say early because if it's ready to go, they could release it whenever they want, and they should just release it on the day that it's like ready to go. I hate that you have to pay like 40 bucks more just to play the game on its release date, and they come up with this tricky language to make you feel special for it. Like, that was bad on its own, but they made everyone think they were somehow getting a good deal by saying, oh, you can preload it on Game Pass and then pay us $40 to play it a few days early, and then of course you get all the extra DLC, blah blah blah, XYZ, all that comes with that $40 purchase. But yeah, you still are charging people on top of the Game Pass subscription to play the game on release date. You know, they're doing all this crafty stuff because they need a lot of subscribers to make up for the fact that they're sinking AAA budgets into these games and selling them for $15 a month, which makes them essentially free. Like, I know that they have 25 million subscribers or whatever, they just hit that number, which is great, but most of those people are probably getting into Game Pass with these crazy hacks and deals where you can pay $1 for like a year of Game Pass. So yeah, I really don't want PlayStation to go to this day one release model, because we're going to start seeing the quality drop in the games. They're going to have to figure out a way to get off of their awesome strategy, which is to give games as long as they need to be developed and then release them when they're finished without microtransactions, without bloat, and just really good stories, really good gameplay, really good graphics. All of that's got to change if they want to make sure their games are coming to Spartacus day one, because they got to recoup those costs. And the other argument I keep seeing is that they absolutely need to make sure Spartacus works day one on PC, and I guess that would be cool. I would obviously be happy about that, but I just don't see it happening, because you'd have to make a PS3 emulator that can run on pretty much any PC, and sure, Sony can afford to do that. Sony probably has a PC emulator for PS3, right? Like, they probably have that tucked away somewhere in their labs, but the PS3 is notoriously hard to emulate. I mean, that's why we're waiting a year and a half maybe after the PS5 comes out to finally see PS3 games natively running on it. They had to wait for the hardware to get good enough to emulate this console. So yeah, expecting them to have a store where you can buy PS3 games or at least download them and make it work on every PC, that just seems like a lot of work for not a lot of reward. I don't see a lot of people on PC begging for this. Like, the fact of the matter is, Sony's strategy works. You make good games, you give them the time they need, you get people excited for them, and people will buy them. Yeah, you get them cheaper overall on Game Pass, but if you're the kind of person who has multiple consoles and you're only playing like 1 or 2 Game Pass games a year, you kind of got to do the math there and say, well, yeah, I am getting more games for this monthly cost, but I'm not using it all that much, and if I just buy the 2 games for less money anyway, like 120 bucks, I don't know. I feel like you got to do the math there and really justify how many games you're actually playing on Game Pass against how many games you would buy if you didn't have Game Pass, you know? But at the end of the day, I think it's good that Sony is finally consolidating PS Plus and PS Now. It's weird that those are 2 separate services, and I'm also glad that they're figuring out a way to make PS1, PS2, and PS3 games run on the PS5, because that's a powerful console. I'm looking at it because it's sitting right there. I feel like it shouldn't be any trouble for them to get these games running on that thing and just not having to play over streaming. So this last news story is actually kind of surprising to me, because Sony has done such a good job shrinking game install sizes on the PS5, especially compared to the Xbox Series X. Now, that's because of this technology that they have called Kraken. I guess they co-developed it specifically for the PS5 that makes it easier to access files so they can make the games smaller. That is a very layman's explanation of how it works, but either way, I know it works because we've seen stuff like Assassin's Creed Valhalla get a patch where you had to re-download the entire game game, but it shaves like tons of gigabytes off of the overall install size. So yeah, like I mentioned, this story is very surprising because it turns out Gran Turismo 7 and Horizon Forbidden West are going to have very big install sizes on the PS5. We'll start with Horizon Forbidden West because that one's coming out the soonest on February 18th. Man, I cannot wait for that game, but if you want to play this one on your PS5, you're going to have to clear at least 80 gigabytes of storage space. There's conflicting reports, but it's going to be at least 80 gigabytes, and that's without the day one patch, which is absolutely insane to me because yeah, I get it. It's a third-person action open world game. It's got some detailed textures. It's got a lot going on, but when you compare that to other games like Warzone or Destiny, they're getting pretty close. I know Warzone is crazy with how much space you need, but they keep shrinking it a little bit, but then they add more to it. It's not necessarily as close to Warzone, but it is the same size as Destiny. It's the same size as Destiny 2, which is a huge game with a ton of different planets. It's got raids in it, tons of different guns. Yeah, I feel like this is crazy that a third-person action game that started on PS4 is going to be the same size as an MMO at launch. But if they are utilizing that cracking technology here and it's still ending up to be bigger than 80 gigabytes, I wonder how big it would be without that, right? Like I'm thinking at least 150, maybe even 200 gigabytes. So you're probably sitting there like, okay, 80 gigabytes plus, I've got that storage space. I can clear some old games. Maybe Returnal's been sitting there too long. Maybe Miles Morales, I'm not going to actually go back and play it. Maybe I'm a little bit bored of Spider-Man Remastered now that I've played through it a few more times since seeing No Way Home. I can clear some space out and be just fine. And for the most part, I'd say you're right. But if you're a Horizon fan who's also a Gran Turismo fan, you're going to have to clear even more storage space because just a couple weeks later, on March 4th, 2022, you're going to have to clear 90 gigabytes of space for Gran Turismo 7. Yes, it is going to be even bigger possibly than Horizon Forbidden West. And knowing again that Horizon is this huge open world RPG, I don't know if you guys are going to have it beat by the time Gran Turismo comes out. So if you're sitting there saying, well, I'll just power through Horizon and then delete it and then install Gran Turismo 7, I feel like there's going to be some overlap there and you're going to need at least 180 gigabytes of storage space on your console. And the craziest part about this is if either of these games do the copying thing where you need 2 times the space on your SSD of the game, it's going to be really hard to get away with installing these bad boys without deleting at least a few games from your SSD. Now obviously and thankfully you can get around this by buying an SSD and installing it in your console. There are plenty of videos here on the channel that show you literally step by step how to do it from start to finish, and it is simple. And also a lot of these SSDs have been going on sale this month. I've seen the WD Black go a lot cheaper than it usually costs. Of course, I've seen the Samsung ones going a lot cheaper too. So if you haven't picked up an SSD yet, now is definitely a good time to do it because there's a lot of games coming out on PS5 this year. It's not just Horizon, it's not just Gran Turismo 7. We also have an open world game coming out at the beginning of February with Dying Light 2, and for some reason they're happy about the fact that that game might take 500 hours to complete. We've also got Elden Ring, another open world game. There's just so many huge games coming out. If you don't have an SSD installed in your console yet, you're gonna want to get one, and now's the time to do it before these games come out, because I guarantee you a lot of people who don't watch this channel are not thinking ahead like us, and they're gonna go to play Horizon Forbidden West, or they're gonna go to play Gran Turismo 7, and they're gonna realize that they're fresh out of space, and then they're gonna go on Amazon to buy up all the SSDs, and then there won't be any because they sold them all out trying to get them for these new games. So if you don't have an SSD installed in your PS5 just yet, we have a bunch of them linked down in the description. You can pick one up now and then check out the video where I explain how to do it, and you'll be good to go for all these huge game launches. Anyway guys, that's all the PlayStation news I have for you today, so make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.